Oh, g'day, we're live. This is Property Realm and welcome to 2022. Well, there you go. What can I say? We're here, we're back, and, you know, it's another year. Is it more of the same? Is it something different? Well, that's what we're sort of going to try and find out today on today's show. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments box wherever you see this video playing, because we're live right now on the 8th of the 3rd, 2022. And of course, you can still ask questions on the post replay because we do monitor the video streams and we will get back to you as needed. All right. Well, before we kick off, we've got a couple of realmers today. We're down one or two people on the show because there's a few things going on at our end, a bit exciting news and what have you. But I've got to introduce. We got Remo and Co. Here we go.
Yeah.
The boys are here. We've got music happening. It's all cranking today.
I kind of feel like this is Magic Mike music, mate.
Hey?
I kind of feel like this is a Magic Mike style music.
Magic Mike. Okay. I don't know what that movie is, mate. So that's fine. Hey,
Ask the wife. She will tell you.
It's so I'm just into. I'm in, right? I've got my towel because I've just come in from the outside and I live in Queensland. And of course, as you know, if it rains in Brisbane, then the whole of Queensland's flooded. But we did have some pretty big activity over the past couple of weeks with rain and floods and what have you up here. And we might touch a bit on that as a bit of a side note as we go forward, because that's a really good time to think about if you're buying property in the future, some things you've got to consider on that. But let's start at the beginning for the year. Everybody always wants to know what's going on this year. Where are we at? What's happening with the property cycle, this sort of stuff. But we'll come to that. So let's go CO. You talk a lot to all our clients and partners and what have you. Is there some questions that they're asking this year? What have they got on, mate? What are on everyone's lips?
A few things have been happening. So towards the new year and just after the new year period, we saw from the existing clients and that a flood of property owners trying to sell their property during the summer period, which has set them up for new opportunities that they're looking for this year, as well as so it seems like property owners are almost ready for anything at this stage after going through COVID, where I'm speaking to clients at the moment that's speaking to lawyers, but their lawyers can't get back to them because their offices are being affected by flooding. So the strange thing is, amongst the floods and everything that's happening this year, people are still looking for opportunity. So the question I have for you, Scotty, and I'd love to discuss and expand more on today is what types of opportunities are available for homeowners and property investors for 2022? What kind of opportunities are out there? Because as much as there's a lot of things going on, people are still looking for opportunities.
Right. Okay. So what you're saying is everyone's asking about what's the best deal for 2022, right? I mean, it's a pretty open-ended question. All right, so my answer is the same answer that it always is. It depends on the person. But if there's a sort of a generic subclass of things that we would default to for 2022, if we had to do that, it would be anything that has a tight time frame on the focus or an extended time frame on the focus, okay? So your short or long-term sort of stuff. Your midterm stuff, I think you're going to get a bit caught on. And the reason is this. We're in the second part of the cycle right now, which means that we are in the emotional stage of the property cycle. It is. If you can't look around and see that things are emotional in terms of what's happening with builders going bust or anything like that, or emotional in terms of what people are paying for property, I mean, it is all over the place, right? So we're in the emotional stage of the property cycle, and that's going to keep going while everyone's got emotions that are hyped and doing whatever. But that doesn't go forever, right? So that can go for the short term, but in the midterm, say something like, what are we in, 22? So we're looking at, say, 3, 4, 5 years. In the 5-year time bracket, well, that's a problem. So if you're doing something right now that you want to exit in 5 years, well, that could be a problem. Okay, that's definitely something that is you need to be wary of. And the other thing is then, of course, everything for a longer term view, like 10 plus years, well, then that's kind of fine, right? So if you're looking at something for this year, I'll be very considerate of the time frame, and you'd want it to be involved in it if you're going to want to make money from it in a transactional perspective in 12 to 36 months. What do you reckon, Remo?
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to be in it to win it. I think there's a lot of fear in the in the property market sector as well. There's a lot of people sort of wanting to get in, but they're scared if they get in, the market corrects, it's going to come down, they're going to lose money. There's a lot of people thinking that, there's a lot of people thinking that the property market's eventually going to correct itself and we're going to see property prices come down substantially. Again, I'm not so certain that that's going to happen. I think we're going to keep going. The other thing that I'm finding a lot as well is people don't follow the property market. People don't understand that there's a cycle. A lot of the people that I've spoken to in recent weeks just think that this is abnormal. There's no call for an increase in property prices, and everybody just think. Well, a lot of people think that this is just going to keep going and going and going and going. And I think sort of mid to late last year, we've discussed the property cycle in quite a bit of detail and discussed the fact that in 2026 was when we were expecting to see the cycle change. Obviously, we've brought that forward to late 2024, 2025 now. But most people are very unaware that we're in a cycle. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Scotty? We've had this discussion, but when do you think we're going to see a market slow down? Because that's what people are asking me. Like, when's the market going to slow down? I want to get in, but they're scared.
Okay, all right. Well, let's answer that. Let's look at some pretty pictures, right? So I'm going to share my screen here, and share screen. Okay. Okay, so you guys can see that. So we'll go back to the old Phil Anderson clock. And the mighty Phil's got his 24-hour clock here. So 12, from 12 back around to 12 and jumping out to 13 on the outer ring. So you go around the cycle twice, or around the clock twice for one cycle. So this was dated many years ago, probably in 2015, 14. So we're here now. So real estate cycle in full swing. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Right, there we go.
That's better.
So we're up there, real estate cycle in full swing, and then that just keeps carrying on till it's all emotional, right? This whole outer side of this cycle is emotional. We've seen all the building stuff happen over here, the expansion of credit, building increased building activity absorbs vacant land. We've seen that coming into 2020 onwards. And then we had the mid-cycle slowdown with the old Rona and all that sort of stuff. And then we've come out of that now, and we're over on this section. And that sort of runs, as Remo mentioned, that date around there, 25, 26. And then it's just, carnage around where we go. So that's where we're at on the property clock perspective. Now, if we look at this here, we've translated that into a chart. Now, I've kind of made that as big as I can. Hope I can move this around. Yeah, I can. Okay, so I did this back in 2016, and I sort of extrapolate this forward. I might need to update it a smidgen, but this is where we're at. So this is based on your holding time, okay, on property. So this is going to answer your question, CO. And this is, I've got color coding, right? So blue is buying, green is selling, and red is doing nothing. So here's what the go is. We're in 2022, and if you want to buy, right? So you want to buy in blue, right? And you want to buy, and you got to do something within 3 years, because this is saying on this line here, number 3, 1, 2, or 3, you can buy. It's okay to buy. So it's okay to buy if you're going to be in and out in 3 years. but it's not okay to buy if you want to be out in years 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So do you get how this chart works? But it is okay to buy again if you're in for 10 years, which is exactly just what I said before. I've managed to find this because I keep losing this chart because I call it some weird name and I never remember what I call it. But this is how it works, right? Is it okay to sell? Well, we don't think it's ever great to sell in 12 months unless you did it for a project like a house and land flip over or something. But if you've just bought a normal established property, in general, my default is selling in 12 months. The last, remember I did this in 2016, not knowing the massive increase we've had in the past year. This is, years ahead of time. I normally say 12 months is too short to sell because of the buying costs, the stamp duties, all that sort of stuff. So that's the default position. But you could say if you bought last year, you'd probably be okay to sell now, right? But you can see here it's okay to sell, right? Anytime that you've bought at this point in time, right? For the past 10 years, if you bought in the past 10 years, it's fine to sell. You're not going to lose money. But this is how this works. So the one of concern here is moving forward is to buy. And so you're looking at, you either got to hold for that short term, the 1 to 3 years, the midterm's out, right? And the reason the midterm's out, we'll come to that in a sec, but the long term's in, okay? It's 9, 10 years. So the midterm's out because if you take that date forward of let's say I want to buy something for 6 years, right? I'm going to buy something, going to have it for 6 years, right? So you go, I want to buy, you go down to 6 years and it's red. You go, oh crap, I can't do anything. Well, the reason is because if you go 6 years forward, that's going to take you to 2028, right? And 2028 is right in the middle of the next crash. That's why the chart says you don't want to sell in 6 years if you're buying now. And that's what this chart does. Yeah. So,
Scott,
so that's answering that.
Could you just expand on, so relevant to this chart and the property clock, you mentioned the market being in full swing and it's emotional. Can you expand a bit more on what you mean by that and what can property owners see in the market that give them a better understanding of why is it a good time to buy, sell in the short term and think about long term as well?
Yeah, okay. So we know we've got, say, 3 odd really good years if we're securing something now. And the reason that is okay to still buy is because if we've got those dates that we're going to exit, well, we're just going to capitalize on the emotion. So there's 2 parts to your question is, let's answer the emotional part. Well, the emotional part is this, is that we've come out of Corona, we're all awesome, we're still alive, there's lots of money floating around from all sorts of perspective. It can be pent-up demand, people haven't spent their money, or it can be the grants, it can be the money printing in the system. It's a different sort of topic. But the simple fact is that there's sort of a lot of cash flowing around, and that gives that whole wealth effect thing happening. And so people are buoyant, right? They've come through a very negative situation. Now we're all positive and we were in it together. Now we're out of it together. Let's go on, and we're patting each other on the back. And yeah, look, that's great. The future looks bright, CO. Yeah. So I'm gonna hock myself, right? I was only going to spend 600 on a loan, but nah, look, it's looking great. I'm going to go 800 on a loan. You know what I mean? Like this is where it's happening. This is the emotional perspective. And I know we've talked about it before on the show, but my argument is that investors don't drive the emotional stage of the market. It's always the owner-occupiers that drive the emotional stage of the market. Now, we have this is all the time, right? All the time indeed. And so we see that happening. Now, the thing is, when we start seeing even investors being emotional, which I don't know if we're quite there yet, but we might be seeing that shortly, then you know you're in full emotional swing, because then it's like, doesn't matter, everything's happening great, we're all on it, it's all happening great together. And we're still seeing that. Now, there's anecdotal evidence to say both sides of the coin. They're going to say that, oh no, the market's cooling, and yet I'm still hearing stories of properties selling in hours on the market with multiple offers. You know what I mean? So from what I see on the data is that we've still got a fair ways to run on this stage of the market, and it's driven by emotion.
I see. Thanks for clarifying that. Makes sense.
No worries. All right. Well, I mean, if that's so hopefully that's helped what the clients have been asking about. I mean, that's good info there. So, Remo, where do you see the development side? I mean, we've got our developments happening. So, what's happening in that space? What's happening with prices and costs and all that sort of thing? Because we haven't had an update on this for quite a number of months. So, mate, where's 2022 at?
Yeah, so I guess 2022 is very much where we were in 2021. Still seeing a massive increase in property prices in terms of development, more so in New South Wales and Queensland. Unfortunately, for those in WA, South Australia and Victoria, I don't follow those markets closely purely because we don't do projects in those states. So, however, with Queensland and New South Wales, to give you guys a bit of an indication, when we first started looking at a project in Wyong, we're looking at about $3,200 a square metre. Well, that's including GST, so $2,750 to $2,800 ex GST per square metre. We've now obviously settled on our Lisarow project on the Central Coast. It's about 12 months later. The price per square metre in that area has gone from $2,800 to about $3,850. So we've seen a massive jump.
So that's sale prices or purchase price? Which price is that?
Oh, that's sale price. So if we were to talk about purchase price, I think we purchased for $215 a square metre. From memory, about 175, 150, 165 around there would be a good ballpark figure for what you would have paid for raw land 2 or 3 years ago. It's gone up. Obviously, I think the property that we purchased at 215, I think we got that at a bit of a steal as well. Looking at land down there at the moment, keep in mind we purchased the property in September. Well, we got it under contract in September, settled in January or February. For the same land in the area at the moment, I think we're sitting at about $300 to $320 a square meter for raw land. So, and again, obviously, there is no land available. I'm speaking to other developers, friends of mine, people that I've become acquainted with through Facebook. And the biggest struggle that I'm finding with most developers is no property available at the moment, no land. Anybody that has land pretty much dictate what they want to sell it for, because a lot of developers at the moment are willing to pay big money for raw land at the moment. Yeah, which is quite scary, I think, because I think we get to a point where we sort of, people make choices and purchase land for a lot more than what it's worth, and then they sit with land that can be developed but can't be sold at a profit.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't help supply. So on that note, there's two parts to this question. One is Steve's already asking here, which is what about the red tape? Is it getting harder to get developments through? And the second part of this is in terms of the actual developing process is what have we seen happen with build costs?
Oh, man. Okay. So answering question number one, no, we're not seeing more red tape. I also don't think we're seeing any less red tape. So I think the only thing that we're seeing at the moment is slight delays in terms of getting stuff through DA, purely because there is a bucket load of developments going on at the moment. Anything from light industrial, daycare centres, rooming houses, land subs, townhouse developments. It's just the entire market's going off, right? More so the light industrial. I think the light industrial market's going off a lot more than most other markets. Even residential, most people would probably want to shoot me for saying that, but that's just reality. That's what I'm seeing. So in terms of red tape, no, I don't see any more red tape. We're just seeing a little bit, slight delays in getting DAs through. In terms of pricing for stock material, yeah, that's probably our biggest issue at the moment. Obviously, everybody knows of who's the company that just went bust, $5 billion worth of contracts? ProBuild, yeah. I saw a sign this morning on my way to Newcastle, big sign, ProBuild Insurance. I was like, I wonder what that was about. But it was a big sign on the side of a fence of a development that was obviously no longer going ahead. So I don't know if it was one of their projects and, call the insurance company or what it was. But yeah, I think unfortunately that's what we're seeing at the moment, because the the prices of materials going up through the roof. It's just, we're seeing builders at the moment sort of dictating what they want to charge. But again, we can't, you can't always pass the increase in costs over to the purchaser, right? So that becomes a little bit problematic. When you're
my question here, this is going to lead into probably an area where, because I think that 2022 is going to be a lot about building, right? I mean, because it's going to have a big effect on the market. So let's delve a bit into that. So you just made a point of saying you can't always pass the costs on to the purchaser. Why not? Because my question is, okay, why shouldn't you be able to pass that on to the purchaser? But they're the one who's going to benefit from it at the end of the day.
I don't think the market's caught up yet. And well, what I mean by that is, obviously, you've got a market where people have been so used to paying between $3,000 to $4,000 per square meter for an end product, and then to have an increase in product or material of by 30 to up to 80%. And yes, we've seen up to an 80% increase in some materials, not so much in concrete and steel manufacturing, but more so much in timber. So you can't just go from selling something for $3,000 to $4,000 to then selling it to $6,000.
Okay, so what you're saying is someone has to cop it. So the point being is that if the end purchaser is further down the chain, as opposed to someone who's a mum and dad building a house, right? The builder cops it on the mum and dad building a house because they got a fixed price contract. But the developer cops it on a commercial project because they have different styles of contracts. Generally speaking, it depends on the size of the deal, right? So someone always has to cop the price increase, though.
Someone has to, yes. And I think if you have agents on board and you've got a good builder on board, you've got a good team of developers on board, and you've been working with your contractors and consultants for quite some time, I think if everybody get together and work on this as a problem, because it is a massive problem, you can sort of minimize the costs all the way through. So typically going back to a builder, say, mate, I need you to squeeze your profit margin smaller because I'm losing, or just getting builders to speak to their contractors to relook at tender documentation or quotes or invoices that are coming in. It's also good to have a really good agent on board, because the agent's essentially going to be responsible for selling. So a good agent will then go to the end user and say, hey, look, we've seen an increase in this market in this particular area because of X, Y, and Z. If you're in the market and you need to buy right now, we have seen an increase in unit pricing going up, and it's going to cost you a little bit more. Or, so for us, it's good, right? We're on the Central Coast. Central Coast is sort of seeing between $4,000 to $4,500 per square meter. Sydney's seeing $8,000 to $8,500 per square meter. This is for a completed unit. That's what they're paying.
But I mean, that's okay because there's uplift, right? So there's uplift. But I guess my point is that someone has to pay somewhere, and I don't think it's always fair to squeeze the builder. So if you look at the residential building, right, with a fixed price contract, some builders in those contracts don't actually have a margin to squeeze. They're behind. Some of them are losing $30,000 a job. I mean, this is where the problem is in the industry. I understand that we need a fixed price contract for certainty, for lending and all that sort of stuff. But in this point in time, those things just are not even accurate or relevant, because it just forces a hard stop somewhere in the situation and something busts, and at this point in time, it's the builders, and that's what we're seeing happening. And my point is that it doesn't actually help the industry to do that, because the less builders there are to build, the less stock that's coming out of the ground, the more in demand the stock is that's already created or coming onto the ground, right? That pushes the prices up even more. So when we see builders go to the wall, this doesn't actually help the market in pricing, and this is this counterintuitive effect that we see going on. And people say builders are going bust in a boom, and now my prices are still going up. I don't understand. And like, this is what's going on. So we've got some comments here. So let's move on, because we're getting through. It's almost time. I've got to watch the time here. So we've got Jenny's come on. She's talking about your lending for development. There's still a lot of people lending for development, and as long as due diligence is done properly, that funding is okay to get. We've got Mr. Skeen, who doesn't do anything else except comment on our shows and take me out for coffee, it seems. We've got the builders are competing on price, the ones that are falling over. Yes, that's true, and that is a very good point. But I still think that that's hurting the ones that weren't competing on price, and they're very much they're caught up in it as well. Let's get to this question. Steve's got another one that we're going to finish on and tick. Someone here, Facebook user, they're probably in Property Realm group there, which you've got to give authority to use your picture online. Says, you were planning to upsize. When's the right time to enter? Now, wait for a slight downturn. Just trying to look at that graph mentioned earlier. So, okay, that Facebook user, contact us on wherever you are there on a DM or whatever. We'll send you that chart. Okay, we'll send you the chart to have a look at, and then you can have a chat to us offline on that, because that's a very specific sort of question. We're doing general advice to the general everybody. When it comes to the specifics, we need to know a bit more about you. So let's finish on this one here. Mr. Skeen is back. What will trigger the correction? Wars, interest rates, consumer confidence? I mean, Steve, you've answered your own question. It's going to be everything, right? What if I turn around and said, what's going to trigger the correction? It's going to be crypto. Oh, how's crypto going to impact the property market? Oh, well, let's not look into the way that they're doing crypto lending, the way that people are staking their coins for lending to others and getting 14% per annum returns. What could it be that could do the next thing? I don't know. A war, a political change. It doesn't really matter. The simple fact is that there's going to be that much excess money and fat and debt going around that this just has to break at some point. But I still don't think we're there yet. And we're not there because everyone's still on the honeymoon. And we're still going and going and going. And we're still seeing those things happening. Will it happen? Absolutely, it will happen. And I think it's at least a few years away. And so at the moment, you've got to be very mindful of what you're doing and how long you're holding it for. And that's my point on that. But there's always wars and rumours of wars and all that sort of stuff. So that's just the world we live in. Okay. Any final comments?
No, I think that that answers questions that I've been getting around the builds and developments as well, and how the builders going bust will affect any short-term projects. So thanks, guys.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, look, I'd like to thank Sio and Remo for coming on the show today. All right, the boys have been on the show. We'll have to get some music for Karen when she's on back next week or week after, whenever she's back, and we'll get something a bit more Karen-like for that one. And that's it. So if you want to know anything more about what we talked about today or anything that we do, make sure you check out the Property Realm Facebook group. You can join up there. Just send an invite through. CEO will go, yeah, welcome aboard, and away you go. You can talk, you can chat, you can ask questions in there. Of course, if you want to know about that chart we placed up earlier, send us a DM on that one, and we'll get that over to you. And we just want to thank all our commenters. We've got Steve, we've got Facebook user, whoever that is. Thank you, Jenny, and Shane Egg. Once again, Shane's there saying we need to do the Magic Mike dance. I don't know what Magic Mike dance is. I think I remember the billboards for that movie, and I think I'm not doing the Magic Mike dance, if that's the same one I remember. So no, thank you, Shane. That's it from Property Realm today. I am Scotty North, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, stay well.